All right, welcome. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at the broadcast tower, but through the eyes of an IT professional. If you've ever stood in a data center, then looked at one of those giant radio towers and thought, are these two worlds ever going to meet? Well, spoiler alert, they already have.
So just for context, what we're diving into today is part 36 of a much bigger 40-part series from Virtualization Options LLC. And its focus is exactly that, bridging the gap between two super technical fields, information technology and broadcast engineering. Let's see what that looks like in the real world.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the big picture, this convergence of RF and IT. Then, we'll learn some of the core lingo of broadcasting. After that, we'll peek inside a modern transmitter. We'll follow the signal's journey from the tower to your radio, and finally, we'll see how a whole broadcast site is now managed pretty much just like a data center.
Okay, let's kick things off with the big one, the RF/IT convergence. Honestly, this is the whole story right here. It's where your world of networking crashes right into the world of airwaves, and it's a massive shift for the industry. And hey, if you're coming at this from an IT background, this should be music to your ears. The source material says it perfectly. Your skills in networking, security, all that digital system stuff, it's not just helpful, it's invaluable. The modern broadcast site is built on a foundation you already get. You're not starting from scratch here, far from it. All right, next up, we've got to learn the lingo. For any IT pro, probably the best way to think about this is like you're learning a new set of protocols. But instead of protocols for data packets, these are the protocols for the radio spectrum itself. So what are we actually broadcasting? Well, at the highest level, you've got your big three, AM, FM, and TV. AM is the classic stuff, right? It uses these lower frequency medium waves that can literally follow the curve of the Earth. Super cool for long range, but it can get a little staticky. Then you have FM and TV. They're up in the higher frequency bands, and this is what we call line of sight. Basically, they're limited by the horizon, but the trade-off is much higher quality and way better resistance to noise. Okay, but how in the world does a song or a TV show actually get onto that radio wave? The magic word here is modulation. At its core, this is just the process of stamping your information, the music, the news, onto a carrier wave so it can go flying through the air. It's kind of the broadcast version of stuffing data into an IP packet. And this table is just a perfect way to see how it's done. AM is the most basic, right? You're just changing the power, or the amplitude, of the wave. Think of it like making a flashlight brighter and dimmer. That's basically it. FM is way more clever. You change the frequency instead, which makes it much tougher against noise. And then you have digital modulation. These are complex schemes designed to cram way more information into the same slice of airwaves. This is what makes things like HD radio and digital TV even possible. All right, enough theory for a minute. Let's get our hands dirty and look at the actual hardware. Section 3, inside the modern transmitter. And wow, the evolution here is it's mind-blowing. We're talking about going from these giant, scary, high-voltage vacuum tubes to something that it looks a lot like a blade server. Seriously, just look at this thing. The heart of a modern transmitter isn't some room-sized Frankenstein's monster anymore. It's digital, it's compact, it's all solid state. For any of you IT folks out there, this is going to look way more like a network appliance than what you'd picture an old radio transmitter to be, right? And here's where it gets really familiar. The benefits? They're straight out of the data center playbook. Higher reliability? Obviously. Hot swappable modules so you can do maintenance without taking the whole thing down? You bet. And this is a big one. No more terrifyingly high voltages. Plus, you get what's called graceful degradation. So if one little part fails, the station doesn't just go silent. The power just dips a bit. That's N+1 redundancy broadcast style. And if you want a stat that really drives this home, check this out. For AM stations, there's this really clever tech called MDCL+. Basically, it dials back the power when the audio is quiet. The result? Insane energy savings. We're talking 30 to 50%. That's a huge win for the bottom line. Okay, so we've created our signal, we've pumped it up with power. Now for the really fun part. Section 4, actually getting it from the tower to someone's radio. This is all about the physics of that final mile. And this side-by-side is such a great way to see how it works. It all comes down to physics. On the left, that's your classic AM antenna. AM uses really long wavelengths, so a lot of the time, the entire tower is the antenna. But on the right, for FM and TV, the wavelengths are way shorter. So instead, you use these smaller, really complex arrays of metal elements mounted on the tower. Same goal, totally different physical solution. And sticking with AM for a second, here's a little detail that just shows the hidden complexity. For that tower to even work right, it needs this enormous ground system. We are talking about a spider web of more than 120 copper wires, buried underground, all spreading out from the base. It's this incredibly precise engineering feat that you'd never even know was there.
So how do these signals actually travel through the air? Because they don't all behave the same way. The AM ground wave kind of hugs the curve of the Earth, which gives it awesome range during the day. But at night, something wild happens. The AM skywave can actually bounce off the ionosphere. That's why you can sometimes hear a tiny AM station from 1,000 miles away. Now, FM and TV, they're much more straightforward. They are strictly line of sight. If there's a mountain in the way, you're probably not getting that signal.
Okay, this brings us to our final section, and honestly, this is where it all clicks into place for anyone with an IP background. Section 5, the IP-powered broadcast site. We're talking about managing a broadcast tower exactly like you'd manage a data center. And this image just says it all, doesn't it? Forget turning analog dials or reading physical gauges. Modern transmitters are all managed through web dashboards like this one. I mean, that's a GUI. That's an IP address. If you can configure a router or check on a server, you already know how to manage this piece of equipment. And the whole management flow, it's straight out of an IT textbook. You've got local systems monitoring the hardware. It's all connected to the network over TCP/IP. You log in with a web browser, you can pull stats using SNMP and plug it right into your existing monitoring system. And of course, you get automated email or text alerts if something goes wrong. This is a standard remote management playbook, period.
So let's just spell it out. All those IT skills you've honed, they are directly transferable right here, right now. Using SNMP for enterprise-wide monitoring, yep, that's a broadcast thing now. Locking things down with firewalls and VPNs, absolutely essential. Carving up the network with VLANs for security and performance, that's just best practice. And designing high-availability failover strategies, just as critical for keeping a station on the air as it is for keeping a website online. The two worlds haven't just met, they've totally merged.
So, we'll leave you with this to chew on. We've seen how the broadcast tower is basically becoming a specialized, high-powered node on the network. It's another data center, really. So that begs the question, what's the next big IT skill that's going to completely change the game in broadcasting? Are we talking about full-stack automation, moving control planes to the cloud, using AI for predictive maintenance? The convergence is here, and what happens next is going to be fascinating to watch.